Hey, it's you, man, from KC95 here. Good evening and welcome to Toasted Tavern. Your host, Scott Tobin, and the man called Wags are ready to bring you the night in sports. So pull up a stool, grab a drink, and let's get toasted.
How's it going, everybody? Wags here alongside Scott Tobin for tonight's episode of the Toasted Tavern. It's been a little bit since we've been able to get together with you guys due to, once again, schedules. Because, I cannot ever get a good amount of sleep because I'm working so early in the morning. And Scott has been working his tail off as well. But we had to jump on tonight because there's so much stuff to talk about in the world of sports. Because it is literally the most wonderful time of the year when it comes to being a sports fan. You're talking NCAA March Madness. You got football, free agency, and trade acquisitions going on. You've got Major League Baseball back in spring training. You've got the NHL and the NBA playoff pushes as well. So much stuff going on in the world of sports right now. It is the most wonderful time of the year for sports fans. And Scott, man, are you enjoying it so far?
I am, man. It's been a crazy week or so. Like you said, so much has happened. We've got so much to talk about. So we might as well just jump into it, man. Where do you want to start tonight?
Oh, well, we got to start right off the bat with what's going on right now, which is Blues hockey. They're in Washington tonight as we speak, getting ready to start that second period. Coming a day after the trade deadline ended, and a lot of consternation from Blues fans around what the Blues did at the trade deadline, just acquiring essentially one player. I mean, you've got Witkowski coming over from Detroit, but the big name was Nick Leddy coming over to shore up the defensive side of things for the Blues in exchange for fan favorite, gutty, gritty, just sacrificial player in Oscar Sundqvist. Jake Wallman, a guy who never really got a full shot at being in the NHL, and then a second-round pick. And it was very interesting the way everything kind of went down yesterday. It was a late afternoon trade for Leddy. It was one of the last trades that were made in the NHL as we approached that 2 o'clock deadline. And I'll be honest, fans were not happy at all about it.
Yeah, and, I understand everybody loves Sonny. He was so key, so instrumental in that cup run in 2019. But the thing that people have to remember is that he hasn't been that guy for a while now because of injuries. And he may never be that guy again just because you have the hips and the knees and everything that he's had the last couple of years. It's going to be hard for him to bounce back, recover, and be the guy that everybody loved it. That was that tough, gritty, kind of the heart of that team as they made that cup run. So I was not as upset as a lot of people were when they made that trade because you did need to go get a defenseman. And, while he's not that big physical guy, from everything I've heard, he sounds like a guy that, he's got lots of playoff experience. He's got cup experience. He's a good guy in the locker room, and he's been a winning player. So it's kind of everything you needed in a lot of ways to shore up your defense. And, the Blues had to make a move. I mean, I think Armstrong felt like he really, really had to do something yesterday. And, you knew that with the prices that were out there for the guys that were being traded, you knew it was going to hurt to make a move. You were going to have to give up more than you really wanted to. And, I think, it hurts. People are upset because everybody has fond memories of Sonny, but I think this was the right move. And I think in the long run, it's going to pay off for the Blues.
Yeah, there are three great points you made in there that we got to touch on just a little bit more. And, we'll start off right off the bat with Oscar Sundqvist. Like you said, very instrumental in that 2019 Cup run, scored a couple of very important goals during that playoff stretch as well. And, he has not been the same player since injury started to take hold of him. Just 4 goals and 11 assists in 41 games this year. He's only played 126 games in the last 3 seasons. And yes, that still sounds like a lot of games, but he's missed a significant chunk, especially last year. He missed about 2/3 of the season due to injury. And a lot of that's because of his playing style. I mean, 115 blocks in his 5 years in St. Louis. He really dove into the mindset of what Craig Berube wanted to have this team embody, which was that shot blocking, physical, just grind it out kind of style. And that's exactly what Oscar Sundqvist did here. And the trade that brought him here, which was the Ryan Reeves deal to Pittsburgh, which also netted the Blues Klim Kostin, is probably one of the better trades that Doug Armstrong made. And now you're looking at it going, is this one of the worst trades that Doug Armstrong has made? And I agree with you 100%. I don't think it is. I think this is actually going to bear out very, very well for the St. Louis Blues, mainly because Nick Leddy is a rental. He's not going to be here past this year. And I mean, we saw this a little bit with the Marco Scandella trade a couple of years ago, and then they signed him to a long-term extension, which now seems to be biting them in the butt a little bit. But I don't think a guy like Nick Leddy is going to essentially stick around here in St. Louis, not because he wouldn't want to be here, but just because it doesn't fit. But he does shore up that top pairing defensive grouping with Colton Parayko. You had Scandella up there with him right now, and Scandella is not a top tier pairing defenseman. I mean, he does not play up there. He's more suited to that third pairing. And now you get a guy like Nick Leddy that can slide in there with Parayko. And yes, you look at his plus minus, which is a minus 33 this year. And you cannot let plus minus be the end all be all for NHL statistics. But he was playing for a terrible Detroit team. And we've seen this with a couple of players that have come to the Blues in the past, where they've had a poor plus minus with a horrible team, but then got here, fit into the system, and played a lot better. And just to take a couple things from a tweet from Megan Shaka yesterday when that trade went down, the things that Nick Leddy is excelling in is something that the Blues have struggled in this year. You're talking about exit carries. Exit carries per 60 minutes, he is 11th in the league, which means he gets the puck out of the zone, which is something the Blues have struggled in. He is 20th in entry passes per game, which is something the Blues struggle in, is getting the puck into the other team's zone. He also has the 9th fewest point shots blocked at even strength. And if you know anything about me, I was an okay Vince Dunn fan. I liked what he brought to the team, but the dude could never learn to get a shot through from the point. Even strength, power play, it did not matter. So to have a guy like Leddy that can come in and get you shots from the point to the net, and then using a big body like an Alexei Toropchenko, who scored his first goal on Saturday against Columbus, having those guys in front of the net to either screen, deflect, or pick up those greasy goals is exactly what the Blues need, and Nick Leddy brings that to this team. It's not a sexy move at all, but as you alluded to, the price for some of these guys, like a Hampus Lindholm, like a Jacob Chychrun, like a Mark Giordano even, they were just way too high for the Blues to really sacrifice their future for. And I think looking at it, Doug Armstrong goes, look, this is kind of like the year that they traded Paul Stastny. They weren't going to make a huge move that was going to make the needle move on this, but they made a move that actually slots people into the spots that they need to be in, and they didn't sacrifice for their future. They're giving themselves a chance to win now, kind of, but also setting themselves up for having that window extended for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And Army kind of made that point yesterday. He basically said a lot of the guys that got traded yesterday, they got traded for first-round picks, weren't
I'm not sure if I lost Scott or Scott lost me. But as we're kind of continuing to go on here, to his point, I mean, the guys that were being dealt were guys that were taking those first round picks, and the Blues just didn't want to sacrifice that. Yeah, their picks are still going to be later towards that end of that first round, but you're going to still strike gold in some of those instances. You look at the Klim Kostin that maybe hasn't produced the way he needs to right now, but he has shown flashes. So you got to hang on to those first round picks as long as you possibly can. So I'm kind of glad the Blues did not give up those picks, because I also don't think they would have been able to sign the guys long term, which would have justified giving away those picks. I mean, Hampus Lindholm signed an extension up there with Boston pretty much right away. And I wouldn't say that, if Jacob Chychrun would have gotten moved, he wouldn't have found a way to get an extension as well. So you look at it, you just go, why would you sacrifice a first round pick and everything else on top of that for a guy that you may not even be able to sign long term? And that's the thing that Doug Armstrong kind of stepped back and was like, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to find a way to shore up the defense without breaking the bank. And it feels like that's what he did. And as of right now, I mean, it's been okay. I mean, this is Nick Leddy's first game with the Blues. They're playing Washington, going up against, 40 goal scorer Alex Ovechkin. It's a good test right off the bat. And the Blues right now 2-2 in the second period, as Blues have goals from Brandon Saad and Ryan O'Reilly in this game. So right now they're playing well. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes out. They've got a couple more games against Eastern Conference opponents before they really get back into the meat of their Western Conference schedule. I mean, they got Philadelphia, Carolina coming into town on Thursday and Saturday, followed by a back-to-back with Vancouver here and then there, part of the Western Canadian trip where they'll hit Edmonton and Calgary. And really, they've got some very winnable games at the end of April or end of March into April. I mean, both the Vancouver games should be winnable. Edmonton should be winnable. Calgary is going to be tough for sure, but you got Arizona, Seattle, and then you got the big test against Minnesota, who picked up Marc-Andre Fleury yesterday. And that could be a preview of your first round against Minnesota. And you're going up against Marc-Andre Fleury, who, if you watch that game at the end of February, the 4-0 victory over Chicago, it would have been about 8-9, 10-0 if Marc-Andre Fleury wasn't in net. So now you're putting him in Minnesota with a team that plays halfway good defense, has offense as well. That's going to be scary. They've still got 2 games against Minnesota coming up. Thankfully, though, both of those games are at home. Still have some Eastern Conference games left as well. They've got the Islanders. They've got a couple against Boston, one more against Buffalo. And then that last week against Anaheim, Calgary, and Vancouver and Vegas. If the Blues are fighting for a playoff spot, that is going to be a vitally important week. And as of right now, they're sitting in 4th place. They have dropped down there from the 2nd place spot as Minnesota and Nashville have kind of overtaken them. Now, they do sit just 1 point back right now. So if they find a way to win tonight, they will jump ahead of both those teams. They will have 1 game in hand on Minnesota. They will trail Nashville. Nashville has 1 game in hand on the Blues, as well as Colorado will have 1 game in hand. But honestly, no one is catching Colorado right now. 95 points to lead the league. And that's followed by the Florida Panthers at 90, who they got phenomenal upgrades at the trade deadline as well. They are really, really going for it. And if you look in the Eastern Conference, it looks like it's going to be Florida, Carolina, and probably Tampa there right up at the top fighting for the Eastern Conference. So that's going to be a fun grouping of teams to watch this year. And if the Blues either don't make it or find a way to lose in the first round, looking at a Florida and a Carolina, those 2 teams are some teams that you're really going to really root for if you've got the ability to. So still working to try and get Scott back on. Not sure what's going on. Probably just like me, having some fun internet issues. They're trying to upgrade everywhere. But let's talk a little bit more about what's going on in the world of sports. In this game tonight against the Capitals, David Perron comes in on a 6-game goal streak. He's looking to tie the team record. Set back in 2005, 2006. It was a 7-game stretch. And it's by a guy that, I don't know. I don't know if people really remember this guy playing for the Blues. He had a good stretch here. He also had a stretch in Nashville as well. Mike Sillinger, 7-game goal streak for the Blues back in 05-06. And that's what David Perron is trying to match in tonight's game. He's had a maintenance day yesterday, but he did fly with the team. Unfortunately, Vladimir Tarasenko, Robert Thomas did not come with the team. Tarasenko still dealing with an illness that kept him out on Saturday. Robert Thomas back injured with that upper body injury. He played on Saturday, but he hasn't really been able to shake what's been ailing him, and that's not good because he has been a real catalyst for this team this year. Somebody that has really set players up, and he's also turned the corner with his offense as well. Going into this year, he was a pass first, look for the opportunity to set up a guy. That was what his mindset was. Well, this year, he's really done a good job of putting pucks towards the net. Obviously, he's upped his scoring as far as goals are concerned. Looking at it, he's obviously not going to lead the team in goals, but he's really started to put the puck at the net, and he's got a wicked shot, man. It's a short, compact shot. He can put it where he wants to. He's been picking corners left and right this year. He's already got 12 goals this year, which that's for Robert Thomas. That's pretty deadly if you're an opponent, because he has not, I believe, crossed 12 goals in his career. No, he's actually set a career high in goals already with 12. He's also set a career high in assists with 36. Obviously, that puts him in a career high in points at 48. He's still probably going to play somewhere in the range of hopefully another 20 games, which maybe add another 20 points to that. You're looking at a 68, almost 70-point player in his 4th full year. that's exactly what the Blues need in their future first line center, which after Ryan O'Reilly does eventually leave this team, that's going to be Robert Thomas's position to lose essentially. So putting him up there, you're going to have him, with the Kairos and, throw up an Alexei Toropchenko. And that's a big beast of a line. You've got the big body in front. You've got the speed of Kairu. You got the speed and skill of Thomas setting guys up. I mean, that could be a deadly line for years to come when it comes to the St. Louis Blues. So right now, still 2-2 in the second period. Blues and Capitals. Blues back on the power play. Their goal by O'Reilly was on the power play as well. Well, you know what? It looks like for some reason we cannot get Scott back on. So we're actually going to go ahead and run this one just a little short tonight. We're going to try and fix our technical issues and try and get things back up and running. And if I can get Scott back on, we might hop back on as well. But you guys enjoy the rest of the second period for the Blues. And we're going to try this again tomorrow night. We'll talk more about the NCAA March Madness, about the Cardinals, the moves they made, the moves they didn't made, but the success that they've been having early on, as well as the crazy moves that have been happening in the NFL when it comes to quarterbacks. I mean, it seems like every team's going to have a new quarterback this year. And really, we still got more moves to make. Jimmy G, Baker Mayfield, all guys that are potentially being moved as well. So we'll have all of that tomorrow night as well. Thank you guys for joining us for this quick hitter. And once again, hopefully we can get our technical issues figured out. And Scott and I will be back tomorrow night for more Toasted Tavern.
Hey, it's U-Man here from Casey. For all your sports news, catch the Toasted Tavern with Scott Tobin and the Man Called Wags, weeknights at 9 p.m. You can follow Toasted Tavern on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Let's get toasted.